Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. I do not remember exactly when or where I met Leah. It was a long time ago, and my memory is not clear. But I believe I first saw her in an old city near the Rhine in Germany. She once told me that she came from an ancient family, but I never knew her family name. Why? Maybe she didn't want me to know, or maybe I never thought to ask. I cannot remember, but there is one thing I remember very well: Leah herself. She was tall and slim, though later, near the end, she became very thin. How can I describe her? Her movements were quiet and graceful, almost aristocratic. She walked so softly that I never heard her enter a room. I only knew she was there when I heard her gentle voice or felt her cool, white hand on my shoulder. She was beautiful, but not in a usual way. Her face had something different, something mysterious. Was it her pale, almost glowing white skin? Or was it her thick, black hair that framed her delicate features? Her long, slender nose was perfect, and her soft red lips curved into the sweetest smile. When she smiled, her white teeth shone like pearls, but it was her eyes that captured me the most. They were much larger than normal eyes, deep and dark, framed by long black lashes and elegant eyebrows. When she was excited, her eyes grew even wider, like a deer's, full of life, full of something I could never quite understand. I often found myself staring into them, trying to read their expression. There was something hidden there, something that made me think for hours, even entire nights. I felt that if I looked long enough, I would finally understand, but just as I thought I had the answer, it would slip away. Leah was calm and quiet, but she was also strong-willed. Her determination shone in her eyes like a fierce energy, and sometimes, it frightened me. She was brilliant. She knew Latin and Greek perfectly and could speak many other languages without a single mistake. She was also an expert in science and mathematics. When we first got married, we studied together. She helped me with my work, and I depended on her knowledge, but after she died, I was alone. Without her, everything felt empty. When Leah first became ill, I felt like a lost child in the dark. She no longer helped me as often as before. She grew thinner, and her pale skin became almost transparent. When I realized she was dying, I felt completely helpless. Leah fought death with all her strength. She refused to give up. I watched in agony as she struggled to stay alive. I knew she loved me, but I only truly understood how deep her love was in those final moments. She held my hands tightly and told me she was devoted to me. I cannot bear to speak of that moment, but I know her love was part of the reason she fought so hard to live. On the night she died, she suddenly sat up in bed and cried, "Oh God! Must I die? Must I lose this battle? No, I cannot die like this." But despite her fight, my dear Leah passed away. Her death left me shattered. I could not stay in the old city by the Rhine. For months, I wandered from place to place, lost in grief. Finally, I bought an old abbey in a lonely part of England. It was dark and cold, just like my heart. But I decorated it with bright-colored curtains, rich carpets, and beautiful ornaments, hoping they would bring me happiness. They did not. I fell into despair and began drinking too much, but I do not wish to talk about that time. I will only say that, after a while, I married Lady Rowena Trevanion of Tremaine. She had blonde hair and blue eyes. She was nothing like Leah. But how could I ever forget my first love? I took Lady Rowena to a high tower room in the abbey, where we lived for the first month of our marriage. The room was vast, with a huge Venetian glass window. The ceiling was high like a church, and a golden chandelier hung in the center. The sofas were from the East, and the grand bed came from India. The walls were covered in long, golden tapestries that moved whenever the wind blew. Rowena was afraid of me. I was often sad and lost in thought, and she could sense my darkness. She did not love me much, and she kept her distance. But I did not mind. My heart still belonged to 𝘠𝘢, my beautiful 𝘠𝘢, lying in her tomb. Sometimes, I even called to her in my dreams, wishing my love could bring her back to me. At the beginning of the second month, Lady Rowena became ill. She had trouble sleeping and told me she could hear strange sounds in the tower. "You have a fever," I told her. "You're imagining things." She recovered for a while, but then she fell sick again, this time, worse than before. The doctors could not understand her illness. Once again, Rowena began to hear small noises and movements in the bedroom. Fear filled her eyes, but I did not know then that the worst was yet to come. One night at the end of September, Rowena woke up suddenly. I was sitting on a sofa near her bed when she whispered to me, her voice weak and trembling. "I hear something. I see something moving." Fear filled her thin, pale face, but I saw and heard nothing. "It's just the wind," I told her gently. "Look, the tapestry moves because of it." Still, she was terrified. Her face turned even paler, and she almost fainted. I remembered there was some wine on the table across the room, so I stood up to get it. But as I walked under the chandelier's soft glow, something strange happened. I felt something. An invisible presence brushed past me. My skin prickled. Then, on the carpet, I saw something that made my breath catch, almost a shadow, but not quite. A shadow of a shadow. I decided to say nothing to Rowena. I poured a glass of wine and brought it to her. She took it, still trembling. I sat down again, watching her closely. Then, just as she lifted the glass to her lips, I saw it, or maybe I imagined it. 3 or 4 large drops of bright red liquid fell into the wine. They vanished into the dark liquid instantly. Rowena didn't see it. She drank the wine. And I said nothing because I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But after that night, Rowena's health worsened rapidly. She grew weaker and weaker. On the 3rd night, she died. Her servants prepared her body for the tomb, covering her with a white sheet. That night, I sat alone in the bedroom with her. Strange forms and shifting shadows moved around me. My eyes darted to the dark corners, to the tapestries swaying in the wind. A deep unease settled in my chest. But then I looked down at the carpet beneath the chandelier. There was no shadow there. Somehow, that calmed me. I turned my gaze to Rowena's still body, and suddenly, painful memories of 𝘠𝘢 flooded my mind. 𝘠𝘢, the only woman I had ever truly loved. Then, around midnight, I heard something. It was faint but unmistakable. A soft sound. Clear in the silence, I sat up, my heart pounding. The sound had come from the bed. I listened, frozen in terror. But it did not come again. Slowly, I forced myself to look at Rowena's face. She was motionless, lifeless. But I did not take my eyes off her. Minutes passed, then, I saw it. A hint of color in her cheeks. My heart stopped. A cold horror washed over me. Rowena was not dead. I rushed to her side, trying to revive her, my hands shaking. But as suddenly as it had appeared, the color drained from her face again, and she was gone. Her face became pale as marble again, her lips thin and frozen in the horrible stillness of death. Her body turned cold and rigid. Overcome with exhaustion and sorrow, I collapsed onto the sofa, my mind drifting back to 𝘠𝘢, an hour passed. Then, I heard it again, the same faint sound from the bed. I sat up, my breath caught in my throat. I listened closely. Yes. There it was again. A sigh, heart pounding. I rushed to the bedside. I watched in shock as Rowena's lips trembled, then slowly parted, revealing her bright teeth. My mind reeled. This could not be real. Had I lost my sanity? A faint pink color spread across her cheeks and neck. Her body, once cold, was growing warm. Then, her heart. It was beating. Weak, but unmistakable. Lady Rowena was alive. I did everything I could to help her, desperate to bring her back. But just as suddenly as life had returned, it slipped away again. Her color faded, her heart stopped, and her body became stiff and lifeless once more. I sat down in stunned silence. My thoughts drifted back to Leah, my beautiful, lost Leah. Then, for the third time, a sound came from the bed. Why must I describe the horrors of that night again? Each time, I tried to bring Rowena back. And each time, she seemed to struggle against an unseen force. Each time, her body changed in ways I could not explain. It was nearly dawn when she moved again. I was slumped in the chair, exhausted beyond reason. When I saw it, her body shifting with more energy than before. Her face. It was no longer deathly pale. A soft glow of life spread across it. Her eyes were still closed, but she looked alive. Then, suddenly, she rose from the bed. Slowly, she walked to the center of the room, her movements dreamlike, as if she were sleepwalking. I did not move. I could not move. I sat frozen, as still and lifeless as stone. A terrible chill ran through my body. I stared at her, my mind filling with wild, frantic thoughts. Was this truly Rowena? Was she really alive? Her blonde hair. Her blue eyes. Why wasn't I certain? Something was wrong. I tried to see her face clearly, but the dim light blurred my vision. Her cheeks, were they pink like roses? Yes, but something felt different. Wasn't she smaller than before? Madness overtook me. I ran toward her, but she stepped back. Then, as the wind rushed through the room, her long hair moved, and I gasped in horror. It was not blonde, it was black. Blacker than the blackest night. And then, slowly, her eyes opened. A terrible cry tore from my lips. These are the eyes of my lost love. The eyes of Leah.